It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole in the studio with me today once again, and we welcome back here at the station Elvia Thompson. She's the co-founder and president of Annapolis Green. She had a show on WNAV for a long time. We miss her, and thank you for joining me again today.
Thank you. It's interesting to be on this side of the microphone, although I'm sitting in my same chair.
Yeah, you are sitting in your same chair. So I always like to sort of assume that there might be newcomers to the area, that there might be people that just don't know what an organization that I'm featuring does. So that said, could you explain what Annapolis Green is, what they do, and how the organization was formed between you and Lynn, right?
That's right. We are an environmental nonprofit. We're a 501c3. We're a little bit different, though, because most of the environmental groups around here have a single concern. It could be a single river. It could be a single issue, like, say, oysters. We kind of cover the waterfront, no pun intended. We look at kind of maybe the bigger picture. And also a big part of our mission is to bring people together so that everyone knows what everybody else is doing, because we think that there's synergy that way. So Lynn, my business partner, Lynn Forsman, and I got together about 13 years ago. She had started Drinks Annapolis, which is, for those who don't know, it's a happy hour. It's a networking cocktail hour for people who are interested in the environment, to get together in person instead of over a screen, get to know one another and discuss issues. So that started, and she was getting maybe 20 or 30 people, mainly folks she knew in the environmental world, together. And then at the same time, I had started the website, annapolisgreen.com, to put information out there on the web for people to learn. So when we got together and really started marketing this, then Green Drinks went from 20 or 30 people to 100, 200,
Yeah, they're packed. I've been to one.
So now, not only do we continue to do these once a month, 13 years later.
At different venues, right?
Yes, we move it around. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. But we also theme the events. So we try to teach people about one thing each month, and it varies. It can go from support for local agriculture to, where are we in the oyster restoration process, what laws are being considered that have an impact on the environment, on and on. Mm-hmm. So we do move it around. We like to highlight places that are on the path to being sustainable in their practices so that we can highlight them and celebrate what they're doing. And we always get people who've never been to that place before. A good example is the Annapolis Summer Garden Theater. We've had Green Drinks there a couple of times, and people who've lived here for years have said things like, gee, I didn't know there was a theater here. Okay, you're blind, but...
And a theater under the stars, for that matter.
Yeah, right. So it's really nice to be able to support Annapolis businesses that way. And even as an environmental organization, we do support local business because we believe that if the economy isn't thriving, then the environmental work is for naught, because then there isn't the capital to support it.
Right.
So
where's the next one being held?
The next one is September 10th. Just a few days from now. It's going to be at the Chesapeake Bay Trust office. They've very recently moved to Eastport. They're on Severn Avenue. And they are the license plate people. The folks who gather funds. One way they gather funds is through the sale of the Chesapeake license plates. And then they turn around and they give the money away in the form of grants. And we are partnering with them on this Green Drinks because the theme is electric driving electric.
Which we're going to talk a whole lot about.
Yeah. So that's the rationale for having Green Drinks at CBT.
On your website, you have a lot of information about the organization, about events being held. You also have a Facebook group, not page, group, so that anyone that has environmental information can share it in this group of people that are concerned with the environment in either locally or nationally or globally or all three of the above, yes?
Right. And we encourage people to post their stories, their accomplishments, their programs, that kind of thing, as long as it's on topic.
Right.
Yeah.
Environmental related.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're going to talk more about electric vehicles. what you might not know about electric vehicles, what I might not know about electric vehicles, and where you can see some of these electric vehicles en masse coming up soon. We'll be right back on the 1430 Connection. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. In the studio with me is Elvia Thompson. She's co-founder and president of Annapolis Green. It's a nonprofit focused on the environment and making our environment a wonderful place. They do a whole lot of work in front of the scenes and behind the scenes. And one of the things that Elvia started or Lynn started not so long ago was bringing a lot of electric vehicles together in Annapolis, manufacturers and dealers, so that we can see all these vehicles. Yes?
Yeah, so our event is part of National Drive Electric Week. So there will be electric car showcases all over the country and even in Canada and Mexico too. So the purpose of this is to bring information to people who are thinking about driving electric. And most of the cars, actually, Donna, are not brought by dealers. They're brought by owners.
Oh, okay.
So the people who come to the show can talk to folks who are actually driving electric without any kind of a sales pitch or anything. They're just talking to owners.
Which is nice, yeah.
Yeah. So to get questions answered like, so how do you like this? I mean, is it okay? Does it drive like a regular car? Whatever your questions
you run
are.
Out of power in the middle of
Right.
95. You're right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it's going to be on City Dock on Saturday, just in a couple weeks, September 14th from 11 to 5. And our local utility, BG&E, is a sponsor because BG&E has a program called EV Smart, where they are looking to electrify driving as much as possible around the state. There are going to be chargers installed all over the place, including in public areas in the city. The city's working with BG&E. The first 2 chargers will be installed at the Pitt Moyer Rec Center. And then there will be others. We've identified, I've worked with the city on this, and we've identified about 15 locations that are, public locations where we can install the chargers. But the thing about driving electric, the first thing I want to say to the audience and to you, Donna, because I know you're looking, there's an electric car in your future. We are all going to be driving electric.
No doubt.
Without too much time going by. The argument that folks who don't believe in this have is, well, yes, but you're essentially fueling the car on the electric grid, which is largely powered by coal. Well, that's true. Mm-hmm. But those regulations for the utilities are changing all the time, and they are being required to provide more and more power from non-fossil fuel sources. So there's
right.
that part.
Uh-huh.
But the other part is there is no tailpipe. Like on my car, I drive a Chevy Bolt with a B, like boy. Mm-hmm. It's all electric. It's my only car. And I have no tailpipe. There is nothing coming out of the back of my car polluting the air.
So no emissions testing?
No emissions. And not only that, essentially no maintenance. I mean, the only thing that has to be done to an electric car on a regular basis is to rotate the tires and have a look at the brakes and change the windshield wipers. But there are no fluids, none of that stuff.
One of the other arguments that I know people had, once upon a time, there was no way to recycle the batteries. That has changed. Yes?
Yeah, I'm not as conversant in that as I should be, but that is, it depends on how you look at it. I lease my car, so after 3 years, I give it back, and then General Motors decides, what they're going to do with this, and how they're going to take care of the batteries and all that. But there is an incredible amount of research being done on batteries. Mm-hmm. And the car batteries right now are lithium-ion batteries. That may change in the future. I know that Tesla is doing a lot of research on this, and we may end up with something else, maybe nickel instead of lithium. I don't know.
Right. Well, I can say from looking at some of the cars that I've looked at, I did ask this question, and I was told by a dealer, this was one vehicle, yes, this manufacturer does do recycling, and this is how we do it. So that was my answer that I got, which was good news.
Okay. Well, that's will be a good topic for us to discuss at the show.
Right.
And we are going to have a number of mini seminars at the show, things from Charging 101, to the climate change implications of driving electric, which are good, not bad. Can you do a long trip in an electric car? And I know this is something you're interested in, Donna. And
Absolutely.
the answer is yes, you can. So it's going to be an afternoon of a lot of education.
Okay, how do you plug in when you're going to a rural area where there aren't a lot of chargers or no chargers? How do you do it? You have an electric car.
I do.
So tell me
and
how
I've been
that's
driving electric for about 7 years.
Okay.
So I plug in at home. I have a garage where I lived before. I did not, but I did have an outdoor plug, just a plain old 110 wall plug, and that's how I charge the car.
So as long as there's a plug,
yeah,
you're saying, any plug.
And it's very slow. That's
Okay.
very slow, but it does work. So overnight, depending on the car, depending on the temperature outside, you could pick up 40 miles overnight. Like I said, it's not real fast.
Right.
But most people don't drive more than about 30 miles in a day.
Right.
The average person, but then of course you might go visit grandma, several hundred miles away. And in that case, then you plan the trip ahead of time. There are several apps, cell phone apps, that help you do that locate all the chargers and will even plan a route for you. And one of them will give you the route, just like AAA might do, tell you how long you would have to charge at that particular charger, because it takes into account what kind of charger is it, and it already knows what your car is and what it's capable of.
What's the app, by the way? What's the name?
So there's one called PlugShare, and then there's another one that's called A Better Route. I think it's A Better Route Planner.
Okay.
It's everything AAA would do for you,
Right.
essentially.
How has your electric bill been affected since the switch to electric car?
Very slightly. It's like having a second refrigerator, a small second refrigerator. Yeah, and not much at all. In fact, you get these printouts from the electric company that tell you where you are in relation to how much power your neighbors use.
Right.
And I've always been slightly higher, but I just got one a few days ago. I was lower.
Ah, congratulations.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. So, and what I've been doing is I don't plug the car in every day. I plug it in when it gets to about 180 miles left.
And do you carry a long extension cord with you?
No.
No. Okay.
So the commercial chargers have the hose already attached. Those are faster.
Okay.
So much faster than at home.
It's just normal. This is something you buy when you get one of these cars.
It comes with.
Okay.
No, well, actually, it comes with an adapter. The cars come with an adapter for the 110 plug-in.
Right.
Okay. But when you pull into a charging station, like let's say at Maryland Hall, there are several at Maryland Hall, or Whole Foods.
Right.
The hose is already there, so you just pull the car up and just plug it in.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. How many cars are you expecting in Annapolis?
I think about 60.
That's a nice amount
Something
of
like
cars,
that,
and
yeah.
all brought by the owners. You don't feel like you're having a salesperson pressure you into any decisions.
There will be some dealers there, and also some of the owners will take people, and some of the dealers will take you out for a ride and even let you drive the cars.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We'll be right back on the 1430 Connection. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me is Elvia Thompson. She's the co-founder and president of Annapolis Green. One more time on the date for the Green Car event at City Dock.
Saturday, September 14th, 11 to 5.
And for more information about that, check the website, which is
AnnapolisGreen.com under Drive Electric.
Okay.
And also, I just want to say to the listeners, we do have .com at the end of our website. That's because when we started, we weren't a nonprofit. It should be .org, but somebody else owns that domain. We're trying to wrestle it from them, but don't be fooled. We are a nonprofit.
We saw some legislative wins at the state and local levels last session. If you are an environmentalist or concerned about the environment, and that was the elimination of polystyrene as food containers. Yes?
Yes.
That was a big deal.
It was a big deal. Yeah. Because you can't do anything with expanded polystyrene. You can't recycle it. The only thing that you can do is put it in the landfill, which you could say, okay, fine. But it's such a brittle material that it almost immediately starts to break up into these little bits. And it's very light, so it flies off the back of trucks, So it's one of the most found objects littering our shorelines.
After the floods last year and after Conowingo gates were open, you were out at City Dock videoing the trash inside Ego Alley. I was at Sandy Point State Park doing the same thing, and you couldn't help but notice what?
It looked like somebody had sprinkled all of that litter, all of that wood and everything. It looks like somebody had sprinkled it with salt. And those were all little plastic bits. The thing about marine plastic pollution in this area is that you don't see it. You don't see a lot of bottles floating in the bay or things like that normally. You know, you might see a few. But the danger, the hidden danger, is the microplastic. In other words, what it's broken up into. Little itty-bitty pieces that the wildlife mistakes for food. They eat it.
And
then,
we, in turn.
And then we eat the fish. And there is microplastic in all of us at this point.
And this is a problem locally, and it's a problem globally.
Yeah, microplastic, it's even in sea salt now. And not only that, but also microfibers from our clothing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's anything that we can do to reduce plastic at its source, not to gather it up after it's already out there, but to reduce it at its source is a good thing.
So how can people change that? What can they do?
Okay, so the 4 R's are refuse, like refuse the plastic bag, refuse the plastic straw, refuse over-packaged material. So if you're in the hardware store and you're looking at tools and two identical tools and one is wrapped in one of those bubble containers, you know, encased in plastic, and one isn't, buy the one that isn't. And then write a letter to the company that makes the one that is overpackaged and tell them, this is how my letters start out. And I write a lot of these letters. It starts out, "Dear, to whom it may concern, I want you to know why I didn't buy your product today." You know?
Tweet, Facebook,
yeah,
any of those.
All of that.
Yeah,
absolutely. So that's the first one, is refuse. Then it's reduce what you use. Reuse it if you already have it, you know, for some other purpose, you know, repurpose things. And then the last one is recycle, because it takes a lot of energy to recycle. And also the recycling world is getting very complicated and difficult at this point, because the Asian countries don't want our trash anymore. And until we develop an industry in this country that will process all that stuff, we're going to have this problem of what do we do with this? So what do we do with it? Don't buy it.
Right.
And then we won't have it.
So a lot of people were surprised and mad about the fact that our recycling division here in Arundel County can't take plastic bags anymore or plastic film anymore. And I saw a lot of comments that said, well, I'm just not going to recycle anymore, which doesn't really help the world that you're living in, or your children or your grandchildren will be living in. There is a website that is called plasticfilmrecycling.org. You enter your zip code, and it tells you where to take that plastic film.
Yeah, we need to keep it out of the landfills, and certainly out of recycling. And the reason for that is that it gums up the machinery, the recycling machinery.
Right.
And for every Waste Management told me that for every minute that their plant is down because it's clogged up with plastic bags, it costs several $1,000s. And guess who pays for that in the end? We do, as taxpayers.
Would it be surprising for having had these wins, as most of the environmental people would call them, with the polystyrene, for there to be legislative action in the coming 2020 legislative session on eliminating plastics?
Yeah, so I know that there are several delegates who are interested in some single product things like eliminating plastic straws, which is a huge problem. So everyone says, well, what difference does one straw make? It said 500,000 people every day in the United States. So luckily that has turned around a lot, and the plastic straws are less and less in use, although there still are organizations and restaurants that are using them. But there is good stuff around the corner. There are straws that are made out of truly biodegradable products.
One more issue we've had locally, and this wasn't out of bad intent. It was just out of lack of knowledge, possibly. Balloon releases.
Yeah, that's a really difficult one, because a lot of people see balloons as something that marks a celebration, that kind of thing, but they're so bad. If it goes up, it's going to come down.
And hurt.
Yeah, and it's probably going to come down in the water, and it'll break up into pieces again, you know, and it's got a string attached, and it's going to do harm to the wildlife. The birds will get the stuff wrapped around their necks. You know, it's just really, really bad stuff.
Okay, so please stop doing that.
Stop doing that. Blow bubbles. Do something else. Yeah.
One more time on your website.
Annapolisgreen.com.
Elvia, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We'll see you next week.